Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
The more that you can make sure that you own your traffic, you own your audience, you own where they're getting their information from, the more safeguarded you are against some of those wild and crazy changes that we see in technology.
Hello, Millionaire University. Welcome back to the podcast. Have you ever wondered about blogging? Is this still something that people do to generate income? And if so, how do they do it? What does it take to have a successful blog that can actually generate a significant amount of revenue? I've brought the perfect guest on to discuss this with today, and she's giving us a masterclass in blogging from the very first things you need to understand and all the way down to the minute details to help you build this as a profitable business model. Corinne Stokoe is the owner of mintarrow.com, and she comes on to share her story of building up her blog, some of the life lessons along the way, the business lessons, the good, the bad, the ugly. And so I'm excited for you to hear from her today. If this is an income stream that you've been curious about or even just never thought of before, you're probably going to see how having a blog could integrate really well into even an existing online business model that you might already have going. So let's get into this with Corinne Stokoe. Hey, Corinne, welcome to Millionaire University. I'm so excited that we get to have this conversation. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kirsten. This is so fun to talk to you. I'm excited. I feel like, gosh, how long ago was it that we first did a podcast episode together?
6 or 7 years ago? It's been maybe longer. It's been a long time. You were one of my very first guests when I started my own podcast. So it's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while, but this is exciting. This is so fun to circle back.
Yeah, and I love having you on here because you've been shared with my personal audience, but to be able to bring you on here and share you with the awesome audience at Millionaire University, I know you have so much to offer. You and I just recently got back from a mastermind retreat in Mexico, and you guys, Corinne knows her stuff. And I was like, you have to come on this podcast and share your brilliance. Let's get into your backstory, because you started many years ago when blogging was first a thing. And I'm guessing, in your opinion, you still have a pretty strong testimony of blogging as a viable income stream.
I do. When people are like, blogging's dead, nobody reads blogs anymore, I'm like, well, they read mine. And I think that blogging is very different than what it started out being. Blogging was the Instagram of the early 2000s. Like, I had multiple, this is what I did over the weekend blogs before I started my business blog, Mint Arrow. So I think that gave me a little bit of a lead, like a ramp or whatever you want to call it. And so I started Mint Arrow when I was just a brand new mom. I had just had my first baby, and I was really struggling with postpartum depression, and I needed something to just get me out of bed and get me excited. And nobody tells you when you have your first baby that the babies sleep like all day at first.
It's kind of boring.
So I was like, what am I going to do with all my time? So that was what I started to do, was find deals. I really enjoyed finding deals. I loved fashion. I was good at it. So I started doing that, and I will never forget, I got a phone call from one of my friend's husbands, and he was like, hey, Corinne, my wife's been reading your blog. She really likes it. How do you plan to monetize? And I was like, mono what? And he was like, how are you going to make money? I was like, oh, I don't know. I haven't even thought about that yet. And I honestly think that is a huge key component of why Mint Arrow has been successful, is I did not start out going, what can I blog about that would make money?
Mm-hmm.
I just think people have a sixth sense where they can sniff that out if that's your intention.
Yep.
And so I think if anyone's listening to this and thinking about starting a blog, you want to start with something that you could talk about all day, every day for free for the rest of your life.
And then
And
it's
that's
a
what will make
bonus
it
if you get
sustainable.
paid. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm a faith God person. I will always bring that back to him and say, I don't really feel like I am something so special. I really feel like this was God's plan for our family, and it was not what we would have envisioned or expected, but now it's our full-time income. My husband works full-time with me, and this is our main gig. We do other things. We have a podcast, and I've started in the self-development world, but really the whole course of our life changed when Mint Arrow took off as a blog. And it just feels like that was the course that was meant to be for our family.
Yeah. It's been a really beautiful thing to watch. When I first met you, you were pretty far in. You were very successful. Obviously, that's why I was aware of who you were. But even still, seeing how you've scaled that and how it's become something so big, and really in an era where there's so many shiny objects of, oh my gosh, this business model, you've stayed so consistent in that, and it's grown and grown. So let's dive into maybe giving some people steps to get started with a blog, because you said it's changed since you began yours.
Yeah.
Used to be a little bit more of a, and I think those still exist, right? Chart my life, show what I'm doing, maybe more so on social media. But now, if somebody were to start a blog, they are going to pursue something they're passionate about. What are some of the things you recommend to really make a go of it, to not just have it be a hobby and really make money from it?
Yeah. The same thing applies to blogs as basically any other stream of income where you're going to post content. It's post really high quality content and post it consistently. So when I started Mint Arrow, I, like I said, didn't have any intention for it to be this big money-making machine, but I wanted it to be taken seriously, and I wanted to really represent myself well, and I wanted to do a good job. I wanted it to be something that people were excited to open their web browser that day and go to mintarrow.com and see what the deal of the day was. And I think something that's differentiated us from a lot of other people that started blogging a long time ago is we still blog every day, Monday through Friday.
Wow.
And we have very seldomly strayed from that. There haven't been very many weekdays in the last 11 years where we haven't put up a blog post.
That's
So
impressive.
I think that being really consistent, if you think about some of the really well-known blogs out there, what's the travel guy? What's his name?
The points guy?
The Points Guy, yes. You know, his articles are really helpful. And half the time, this is the other thing that's the most important thing now, I think, is when I Google something that's travel related, credit card related, half the time his stuff pulls up.
Yep.
And that's SEO, search engine optimization. And so I would say if you're starting now, the more education you can have on SEO friendliness, like to make sure that your blog is very SEO friendly, the better you're going to do, because you can write a really wonderful article or blog post, but if it's not set up in a way where there's certain keywords and the title matches what you're talking about, and basically you just have to make it so that Google can say, oh, this is what people are searching for. We want to give them good results. Google is a business too. We want to continue to be the number one search. I guess people say now that YouTube is the number one search engine, but I still think it's Google.
Yeah.
And they're competing against Yahoo and Bing and whoever else is out there now.
Yeah.
And so they still want to give people the best results. So in order for you to be the thing that is recommended to people when you Google something like, what's the best points travel card? You need to write something that is very rich with information that gives people the answers that they're looking for, so that when Google recommends the Points Guy, I read the article and I go, oh, that's exactly what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people Google Nordstrom anniversary sale and we're on the first page of the Google results, they're going to click into our article that is like this very detailed Nordstrom anniversary sale blog post, and it's going to give them more than what they were looking for.
Yeah.
So, you know, taking a beginner course on SEO, I don't think there's so many SEO experts out there who are very expensive. And if you're to the point where you can afford it, great. But if you're just starting out, don't feel like you need to go hire someone in order to have good SEO results. I think there's a lot of free information on YouTube. There's a lot of great stuff out there that you can just go learn on your own and implement, and you'll see results.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things. I also think picking a smart name, I didn't necessarily do this as far as like a name that's super obvious. When someone looks at Mint Arrow, it's not like they know instantly that Mint was supposed to be money and Arrow was supposed to be deal finding. That's not an obvious thing. but it is a strong enough name. And my dad is an IP attorney. He talked through this with me a lot. Like, you want to have a name that's strong. My sister did a lot better job at this. Her blog is femalefoodie.com. And so female foodie is pretty obvious what it is from the get-go. And who love food, they're going to give you really great food recommendations. But I would say you pick a really strong name. And you and I think mutually know Mindy from Cute Girls Hairstyles. Mm-hmm. She told me that they literally chose Cute Girls Hairstyles
because of its
to be SEO friendly. Yeah, on YouTube. And it's done that. Obviously, that was a really great choice for them in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so if you can pick something where it's like people instantly know when they read your username or they read your blog name, like, oh, I know exactly what that is, you're going to do really well. So whenever you come up with that, going to every single one of the social media outlets and reserving that name immediately is really important so that you can stay consistent across all the platforms. And anytime a new platform comes out, even if you're like, I don't think I'm going to use that, reserve your name anyway. I mean, what was the Lemonade?
Yeah.
Like that we all thought maybe was going to be the new Pinterest and it flopped. Like the second I heard about that, I reserved Mint Arrow because I knew that if it took off, I didn't want to have to fight somebody
and do
for that name.
_ arrow.
Yeah. And now there's all these like squatters too, who will go take up names that they think are valuable so that someone else will have to pay them. Unfortunate. And actually, that's another really super important thing. If you end up having a blog, even if you have a business where another part of it, I think this is a lot of people that are trying to start blogging now are in this position where they've got a business that's doing really well, maybe on Instagram or maybe on YouTube. And they're like, gosh, actually, here's a good example. Phil's My Pharmacist is one of my favorite Instagram accounts. He's a personal friend of mine. And when he started to really take off and grow, I was like, Phil, you need a blog because you need a place where you can write one article and then you can send people to it. And even if that's not like your main source of income, it saves you so much time and so much headache if you have one place where every time someone asks you, what do I do about a sore throat? You can send them to that blog post. It's really important that you set up a blog that is just going to be like easy to navigate, easy for people to use, easy for people to find the answers that they're looking for. And it really can amplify almost any business that I can think of. I feel like a lot of people that are starting blogs are connecting them to an existing really strong business. And to me, I just think that's such a smart move.
Yeah. And it's because you started with the blog, expanded out to social media. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're seeing that the reverse can be true, like you just said, because you don't have to have a blog to be successful. But I've even found it so helpful just to have a landing page, a resource, instead of having those same long conversations through your DMs. And it also just, again, it puts your stamp out there on the internet even more, where stuff on social media is going to expire, but you can have this SEO driving traffic to your social media and your social media driving traffic to the blog. And then there's so many different ways that you can monetize that. So I think that's really smart. And I've personally seen the need for that. Even though I'm not full-time blogging, it's not the main focus of my core content. It's still a place that I create stuff because it's so helpful.
Yeah. Another thing I think is worth talking about. Do you think you have like influencers, fashion influencers, things like that are listening to this podcast?
Probably, or want to be aspiring.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, a big mistake that I think a lot of people make is to put all their eggs into one social media basket that they do not own. Someone who just wants to build a huge TikTok following and they're like, I'm going to monetize this and this is the only place that I'm going to exist. Well, that's great. But what happens if TikTok changes their algorithm? What happens if TikTok gets banned from the United States? Yeah. What happens? Or even so many of my friends who have just done Instagram and LTK. And they're like, I'm just going to build an LTK following and post stuff there. That's fine too. Don't have any control over either of those platforms. You don't own them. You don't own an email list attached to them. So having a blog gives you a place to really be in a lot more control of how things are shown. And for us, we've always really wanted to create a habit where people know to come to mintarrow.com and that's where they're going to find the full details of an outfit or a deal or whatever. When LTK really was starting to blow up in the beginning, the like to know it, when it was actually a like on Instagram and then you got an email sent to you after you liked a photo, that's how like to know it came about. So many of my fashion blogger friends just like dove headfirst into that and they just worked so hard to build up their LTK following, and every Instagram post that they did was directed to LTK. I just had a bad feeling about it. I was like, I just don't know if
You're
I really
giving all
want to
your
do
traffic
this.
away.
Totally. So what happened was LTK, or Like to Know It back then, it was owned by Reward Style, but Like to Know It, that actual technology of liking a photo and then automatically getting an email sent to you, was gone overnight. Instagram decided to change how their API worked, how the technology behind that worked. They said, nope, we don't want to do this anymore. We don't want to hand all this monetization over to another company that's not benefiting us at all. So they just scrapped it overnight. And because Like to Know It, or Reward Style, or LTK, whatever you want to call it, that company didn't own Instagram, they couldn't do anything about it. And so my friends who were only monetizing through Like to Know It lost like 80% of their business overnight.
Wow.
When that API changed.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we had been sending people to mintarrow.com instead of an LTK post every time meant that it really didn't affect us at all.
Yeah.
And so I think that there will be things with AI and with technology, there will be things like this that will change in the future, where something is a gravy train that people ride for a little bit and then it just nosedives. So the more that you can make sure that you own your traffic, you own your audience, you own where they're getting their information from, the more safeguarded you are against some of those wild and crazy changes that we see in technology.
Yeah. And it's that extra step that might feel cumbersome, because I'm sure there's times you're like, oh, I just want to link to this in stories just directly to the product, but even linking to the blog post and owning that traffic, continuing to drive that traffic, it's a much bigger strategy, but it serves you in the long run. And I think it's really easy to get that short-term syndrome and just be like, well, I can do this and follow the vanity metric and have this huge following on Like to Know It. And then, like you said, I've always been a big proponent of owning your traffic. If you're going to take the time to create content, if you're going to take the time to sell something, then own as much traffic as you can. And this exists across multiple industries. So I want to get into, because as you were talking and we started diving into Like to Know It, I realized there's a huge opportunity here to really dive into even the specificity of like, how do we monetize a blog? And there's multiple ways that I know that you've done that. And it can be, some of these are specific to fashion, but most of these are not. It can apply across the board to multiple types of blogs. So what did you guys first monetize with, and what was your journey? And then what do you recommend people start with?
Yeah. So my 9-year-old asked me this yesterday, so I'll answer the same way that I answered to her.
Love it.
There are two main ways that we monetize mintarrow.com. The first way is just through affiliate links. So that means that if I recommend a lipstick and I love it and I link to it through, an affiliate link that is trackable. And so let's say a link to Nordstrom and I say, this is Nordstrom's #1 selling lipstick, which is Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk, in case you're curious. I link to that and then 50 people buy it. Nordstrom will give me about 12% commission of the sales that I drove. So if I drove $1,000 in sales, then they'll give me $120. And so that is the first way. And I think the easiest way to get started, you really don't have to have buy-ins from sponsors. You don't have to have relationships. You can very easily go out and start. There's so many platforms too. There's not just Like to Know It or LTK. There's Mavely. There's ShopMy that's brand new. And there's Magic Links. Like, there are so many out there that it's a much lower barrier to entry. Amazon is a great affiliate platform too, that you really don't have to. Some of these other platforms, they want to see high traffic. They want to see a big Instagram following. They want to see certain numbers before they'll let you in the gate. And there's a lot of other platforms where Howl, that's the one I was trying to think of, HOWL. There's a lot of these other platforms where they're like, come on in. We'll help you monetize. We're happy to do that. Amazon is one of them.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is the #1 way that I started out and that I think most people should start with.
Shopify has already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify POS is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Plus, Shopify's Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/MU, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/MU to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/MU.
If you're a business-to-business marketer, you don't need me to tell you that your needs are unique. B2B buying cycles can be painfully long, and your customers face incredibly complex decisions. Isn't it time you had a marketing platform built specifically for you? Well, good news, folks. LinkedIn Ads empowers marketers with solutions for you and your customers. LinkedIn Ads allow you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful environment. You'll have direct access to and build relationships with decision makers. There's 1 billion members, 180 million senior-level executives, and 10 million C-level executives. You'll be able to drive results with targeting and measurement tools built specifically for business-to-business. And in technology, LinkedIn generated 2 to 5x higher return on ad spend than other social media platforms. You'll get to work with a partner who respects the B2B world you operate in, and 79% of B2B content marketers said LinkedIn produces the best results for paid media. So make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MUPod to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MUPOD. Terms and conditions apply.
The second way is doing paid partnerships. So for us, we still do a lot of blog paid partnerships where a Nordstrom comes to us and says, okay, every month this year, we're going to want you to post about something. And they give us a pretty broad topic. Let's say it's back to school. So they're like, choose anything from Nordstrom, put together some back to school outfits, and we will give you a flat fee to post it on your blog and your social media and send it out to your newsletter. So those are the two main ways. And I think you would actually be surprised how quickly those opportunities can come to you if you just prove yourself with affiliate links. That's exactly how it happened for me. I started selling so much stuff for Nordstrom and Kate Spade and Ann Taylor that like those companies came to me and sponsored me to go to New York Fashion Week and gave me flat fee opportunities within the first year of blogging because I was showing really good sales numbers. And that still is a thing. If anybody out there is telling you that's not a thing anymore, they're wrong. And there's room for everybody. There's room for all the new people that want to come in. But those are the ways that the two, I think, most common and lucrative ways. And then obviously there's things like banner ads on a blog. We actually don't have those because I felt like they distracted from the overall quality experience for our reader. And it just wasn't, the amount of money that we were bringing in wasn't really worth it. But then if you talk to food blogger, that is their bread and butter. That's how they make all of their money.
No pun intended.
Yeah. And it's going to be like flip-flopped usually. So my sister once was asking me like when the last time was that I logged into my ad network, the banner ads at the time that I was running. And I was like, oh, I don't know. It's been like a month at least. And she was like, are you kidding me? I look every day. And I was like, when's the last time you logged into your LTK? And she was like, okay, fair point.
Yeah.
You know, because she'll sometimes throw an affiliate link up on her blog or on her Instagram stories or whatever, but that's not the main source. So if you're a blog where you are putting out recipes, or you're maybe a travel blog, or it's mostly just information that people are going to go to over and over and sit and read and reference, and they're not buying stuff from you, that's where a high traffic, high SEO blog is going to make a lot of money through ads.
Wow. That's so exciting. I bet it was so mind-blowing when you first got that affiliate sale, when you're like, okay, we'll throw some things in here where we can make money. I know for myself, I'm still so blown away when it feels like free money. Just like, I'm already talking about this. I'm already excited about this, and I'm getting a little kickback, and I didn't even have to create the lipstick. It's such a simple, like you said, it's a low barrier of entry. It's something anybody can start doing, especially even now. Instagram doesn't have a minimum follower count to start linking to things in your Instagram stories. I'm curious how you have grown your email list, because I'm sure it's pretty substantial after 11 years. What has been your main driver to that list? And then what do you see the conversion like? Because is everybody just knowing, you said you've created that habit of people checking the blog, but is the email driving a lot of people, reminding them to check the blog? Do you see a lot of sales coming through? That was a lot of questions, but let's just talk about email.
Yes. Email. Yeah. Email's so important. And I think it's more competitive than it ever has been. I think that click rates and open rates, those are just metrics on like, do people even read your emails? those can be hard to compete for because now everyone has an email list. And now everybody who's ever signed up for, if you've ever bought anything, then you're automatically added to the email list. And it's like, oh my gosh, this one thing that I ordered one time, now they send me emails once a week about the ketchup of the month or whatever. An email list is really important though. And the ways that I've grown it are in the past, just having a pop-up on my blog that says, hey, do you want in on our secrets? Or we've tried different marketing things, but basically just giving people an opportunity to say, if they come in, especially from SEO or from Pinterest, which we haven't even talked about.
Yeah.
If they come in because they searched something, they searched what to wear to Disneyland, and they found my blog post and they read it and they were like, oh, this is really helpful. I just ordered 6 things from this post. And then this pop-up shows up that says, hey, did you find this useful? Do you want more? Do you want more advice from me? Or do you like deals? Then people will add themselves. We've had a good amount of people add themselves through the years that way. And then we've also done strategic partnerships where we've given away something really substantial and then both parties get to collect the email list at the end. That's another good way to grow an email list. Although you have to be very careful, as our friend Brittany Rottell said, who's the lawyer for creatives.
So yeah, we have her voice in our head all the time. When you said that, I'm like, but there's a strategy for that, right?
But be careful, but just do it the right way. Be legit, legally legit, as Brittany would say. So that is one way that's been effective, but you can't overuse that. You've got to, in my opinion, you want to do giveaways seldomly. Otherwise, it just feels like junky. And then you'll burn your audience and they'll be like, I can't with this girl. She gives something away every week and it just feels like tacky.
Yeah.
At least for me, that's how it feels. I want it to be this exciting, Christmassy. Oh,
yeah,
we're doing a giveaway.
Like, yeah, it's like not all the time.
Not all the time. So that has worked in the past here and there. ManyChat is another way that I think is really effective right now. I think if you are telling people like, hey, are you interested in the Nordstrom anniversary sale that's coming up, comment sale, and I'll send you, and then we send people a link that says something like, do you want to be in the insiders group? We'll tell you what I try on every pair of jeans every year. So once I try on all the pair of jeans, do you want to know what the top 5 are of the whole anniversary sale? And so people can go in and add themselves to that. So I think that can be really effective. Quizzes can be really effective. And it depends on what your blog is about. But let's say you have a beauty blog and it is all about skincare, makeup, hair, that kind of thing. You could have somebody do a quiz on what type of skincare are you looking for? What's your skin type? And they're answering questions about how old they are, what their skin type is, things like that. And then at the end, they have to enter their email to get the results.
You know, I'm a big fan of that, right? Yeah. This is my genius zone. We love a good quiz. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's been really effective for people too. And we've seen great growth, not only on Mint Arrow, but also on our Coda-free side that's where we're doing some self-development work and teaching people about codependency.
Awesome. Okay. So we know you're definitely leveraging the email. I get your emails and I've bought stuff from your links several times. I definitely love your recommendations. So that's been a huge asset too. And I feel like that's one of those things where you own the blog, you own the SEO, and then also owning the email list and not just solely relying on the social media followers and not relying on just selling in the DMs is so smart. You mentioned Pinterest, so let's talk about that because I'm sure that's a huge driver of traffic as well. Have you guys been on there the entire time you've had the blog? Is that a huge piece to your success?
I wouldn't say it's a huge piece. I would say it's a piece. I would say it's some of these other social media. What's really interesting about being a blogger, like being a true blogger that blogs every day or that blogs frequently and has income from a blog, is that all of these social media platforms are like breadcrumbs. Like you drop breadcrumbs on Instagram, you drop breadcrumbs on a reel and Instagram stories. And Pinterest is a cool place, but it really requires a blog to do very well on Pinterest. You can use Pinterest to send people to an Instagram post or to send people to a podcast, but really you're going to do the best if you have blog content that you can pin some images and you want to pin an image that has a really good catchy title or a hook. Like they call that a hook on Instagram, but you're doing the same thing on Pinterest where it's like, oh, that caught my attention. What shoes to wear to Disneyland? And so they click on that, they go over to your fashion blog, they read your post about what to wear, what's smart to wear to Disneyland. And then if you can get them on your email list, you've got a subscriber. You've got somebody that is now like a lifelong customer, hopefully. Versus if you just pin things like a cute pair of shoes on Pinterest, maybe you'll sell 5 pairs of them, but how are you going to keep track of that person? You know?
Yeah.
I've seen traffic from their consistent flowing traffic, but I wouldn't say, for some people, Jenna Kutcher says that is like her ticket to success. And here's another thing too that I think is really important to talk about is you can't be the queen of everything. And so finding something that you're like, I love spending time on here. I feel like I get it. That's where I would encourage anyone, especially someone who's starting out, to just really hone in on one thing. Be good at one thing. And then as that grows, you can branch out and be learning more about each of the platforms. So what I've done over the years is like we've kept Pinterest up. I've always had someone that every time we put out a new blog post, they're pinning the images and we're doing the basic strategic things over there. But it's okay. That's not my jam. Because you can't be everywhere and be killing it at everything unless you have the budget to have a really big team. But even that presents its own problems. No?
Yep.
So I think especially for someone starting out, finding something, if you're like, I am on TikTok all the time and I love it and I feel like this is my audience, I get how to do this, I understand how to create the content here, this is my jam, great. Really lean into that. And then if you can, attach it to a blog. But I think with social media, there's a temptation sometimes to feel like you got to be everywhere and do everything and kill it at all the platforms. And you really don't.
Yeah. That's something we're really good at here. I know I'm in Justin's ear a lot where I'm like, we should really be hitting TikTok. We should really be hitting Pinterest. And he's so good at keeping us dialed in to we're focusing on getting this one of the best podcasts that we can possibly create and making that content really intentionally. And then we're going to add those platforms in as we get going and as it makes sense to scale. And I think that's a really important thing to bring up because I fall in that pressure too, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I see all these people who have been maybe doing business a lot longer who are killing it, but they have those systems built in and they've taken one platform at a time and then added as they go. And I think it is easy to look around and be like, I'm not successful if I'm not on Pinterest and TikTok and YouTube and have a podcast and all the things. Ideally, we get there, but I think it's important to hear to focus in on your genius zone, like you said.
Yeah. And those big players, big name people who seem like they are killing it everywhere, they're not doing that all themselves.
Yeah.
Teams, they have big teams. And we've had a big team in the past, and I actually prefer a smaller team. It is a lot of time, especially if you have a family, spend time with your family. It's like a whole different beast itself when you grow this big team to try to just do so many things all at once. It's like now you have not only the content that you're creating, but the team is a business itself too that you're having to run and manage and take care of people and make sure that they feel like they have a really good place that they're working. And so I don't know, is it worth the glam of feeling like you're killing it everywhere to have enough people to be killing it everywhere? Because that presents not necessarily a problem, but it just, the logistics of that are that you're going to have to also spend time taking care of all those people. We've done it both ways. And I think that I really prefer, it's essentialism. If you've read Greg McKeown's book, Essentialism, I prefer that so much more to just be like, what are we really good at? And let's just stay there. Yeah. And let's be really good at what we're really good at.
Yeah. I wanted to go into this in the scalability of Mintero and how you have grown that because you're still putting out a blog post every day, but I know you're on to new endeavors, like you said, pursuing. You have Mintero Messages, the podcast, you're helping people work through codependency, which is really awesome and exciting that you've been able to move into this new phase. But I know that's still producing a ton of income for you. So I know you're personally not necessarily blogging. When did you bring on those team members and what did that evolution look like of, hey, this could be bigger if I'm not trying to do everything myself?
Yeah, I think we were in about year 3 when we really started to grow a team. And at first, it's so hard, Kirsten, because like at first, most people do what I did, where they're just like, I need help. I don't even know what I need. Just help me. And you bring in the assistant that's the catch-all and they're trying to do everything. And I actually have a lot of regret. I look back and I feel bad that I didn't, and this is just learning, but I didn't know how to properly manage a team or manage people. And I burned people out where I gave them too much and expected too much. And I hired really great people who were like, hi, I'm trying so hard. And so we learned over time, let's give fewer things to more people. And as that grew and our team grew, our success grew. But like I said a second ago too, I felt like it was better when we brought things back down a little bit But to begin with, though, when you're in those beginning stages and you start to feel like, I can't do all of this alone, it's time to bring somebody in. And Back Your Time is a really good book that I read recently by Dan Martell, I think is his name. And he goes through this whole idea of he says, first bring in an assistant and start taking things off of your plate that somebody else could do, so that you're only doing the things that only you can do. So as far as, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but you said with Mint Arrow now, how involved am I versus my team? I remember having this just light bulb moment when I was I hired a Pinterest consultant and we were talking about my workload and how to put out all this content. And I think this was probably year 3 or so, maybe 4, I don't know. And she was like, well, you don't have to write a brand new blog post every day. You can be repurposing. And I was like, wait, what? Say that again. And part of the scalability also for me comes with 11 years of content means we have a lot of stuff to reach back into our archives and freshen up and repost and maybe even just take a few fresh pictures of. And that content is still good content, even if some of it changes a little bit.
Yeah.
The basic bones of what to wear to Disneyland, even if this year Hokas are more popular than 5 years ago when an Adidas shoe was the cool shoe, that's an easy thing to swap out and to get a few new pictures of. But the basic, like I said, bones of that is still relevant. And so as we've grown and created all this content, it's easier to go back and pull things from the archives. So that's typically what my team does now. We have so much content of every brand that we love that when I think our post yesterday was on living proof hair products, we have pictures and videos and content of all of the products that I love from them. So it's very easy for my team to put a post together and just change today's deal details and then post it as a new blog post, send it out to our email list, put some social media together. So, those things take time to build up, I feel like. So in the beginning, it's like any other business. It's a grind in the beginning, but it starts to pay off after a year or 2 years when you have a lot of content that you can reach back and repurpose. Even if it's just the words that you're repurposing and then you're taking new photos of this year's Halloween costumes. That's been another one that has done fairly well on Pinterest and Google search, that we for years did these family Halloween outfits where everybody, it was a theme where everybody had something, but we were all Star Wars or we were all the Incredibles or whatever. And I led with, I am not a DIY mom. I am not a sew yourself a costume mom. I am an Amazon Prime mom. So if you're that mom too, here's the links to buy everything for these outfits. And so over the years, we've added more and more to that. And so we've been able to create this really cool kind of catalog of all of these family costumes that my family has worn throughout the years and provide those links. And every year there's usually 1 or 2 at least dead links where we're like, oh, this Amazon seller is no longer selling that. Let's link to this one. But it's really not that much effort to switch out a few links and then just send it back out, and people love it.
How well are you systematized? Because to be able to keep track of that library of the content and then the pieces that go into the content and the links, do you have a pretty substantial tracking system, or just people plugged into the right places that are just so familiar with those archives and everything? How do you chart that and keep track? It just feels huge.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pieces to that. I think having a good editorial calendar, content calendar is really important, where you're kind of projecting okay, we know that Mother's Day is coming up. Let's put something at the kind of middle of April to get ready for Mother's Day in May or beginning of April even. I mean, more and more, it's just like Costco. Costco is a good indicator of how early you should be posting content, because even though it's just makes you feel like you want to gag when you see Christmas stuff in July, there's a reason why that stuff comes out so early. And it's the same with blog content, because by the time it rolls around Pinterest, it takes a while for something to take off. So, we try to post stuff as early as we can without being offensive. So usually we keep our holiday content all ready to go for November 1st. And we know that we're going to start posting certain gift guides, and we have those kind of mapped out. And then part of it too, because we're a blog that does deals, some of that you can't predict. Some of it you can. We know that Amazon Prime Day is going to be July, I think 15th and 16th of this year or something. So you can start planning for that if you're a blogger or even if you're an Instagrammer or any kind of a content creator. But there's other things where it's like we wake up and it's, oh, today Living Proof is doing this huge hair sale. Let's pull our stuff. Let's throw a blog post together. So we're a little bit more unique in that regard as far as like we're subject to whatever the deal gods want to throw at us that day. If you're more of a traditional, you've got a food blog, you've got a outfit blog, you've got a beauty blog, you've got a travel blog, a Point Sky blog, like most of those blogs, you can plan it a whole year in advance if you want to and be having people put stuff together and get it ready. And I used to approve everything. Now we have a girl who's been with us long enough that she really understands like the caliber and quality of content that we want to put out. And she knows my voice well enough that she can approve for me, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And that takes a minute. It takes finding the right person who's really wonderful. And then it also takes just working with them long enough that they really are comfortable. And also the third component to that, that's maybe the most important, is it takes letting go of feeling like you need to control every little thing and approve every little written word. It's, do people even read this stuff anyway? They do, but they mostly skim. Like when I got on the Point Sky, whatever that was, thing that I Googled the other day, did I like meticulously read every word and look for typos? No. I'm basically just skimming through it to find the information that I need. And as soon as I do, I'm like, okay, cool, done.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think you can overthink, overanalyze, overproduce, and it doesn't matter what kind of content you're creating. I think you can do that with Instagram and with TikTok and with all. And you and I both know that a lot of times the things that do the best are the things you spend the least amount of time on.
Yep.
So yeah, letting go of that control, like just creating it and putting it out there and not being worried about being a perfectionist with everything is also going to give you a lot more success.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Wow, you have given so much to think about. There's a lot of different steps in here. There's a lot of consideration to multiple ways that you can monetize, and it's such a great foundational piece. And I knew that you would bring a ton of value in helping us. If there's anything else that you want to add to this, I like to ask the question, if you were thrown into this, you had to start over today, what are like the top 5 things that you would do if you had to start this whole entire business model again?
Okay. That's a great question. Before I even start with that, when you said, is there anything that you want to share? I feel like it's so important to just say that I still remember going to a blogging conference when I was new, and I sat down and there was a panel of these women and they were all big bloggers. And I was like year 1, right, of my blog. And someone said, okay, so ladies, what's the best way to be successful at a blog? And someone said, start in 2008. And then they all giggled. And
Wow.
I just was like, oh, so am I just wasting my time? And think about if I had just walked away from that and been like, it's 2014. I guess like the time has passed. Like I started too late.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
there's
crazy.
room for everyone at the top. There's room for everyone to succeed. There's room for, there's so many things that haven't even been created yet.
Yeah.
Like, so if you feel passionate about something, do not let anyone discourage you or tell you that it's too late or there's not room, because that's absolutely not true.
I love that.
So that's really important.
Yeah. Okay, before you answer that last question too, I think something you said sparked what I wanted to say earlier, which is you said there's plenty of room. There's things that haven't even been created yet. And in my opinion, when you consider all of the products now, there's so many more product-driven businesses. Back when you started, it was a lot of the big hitters. You're working with big companies. Now there's all these smaller brands. There's all these products. There's always product-driven businesses that need people talking about it. And so if you have that gift and you love promotion and you love sharing what you love, then there's so much room for that, because there's never going to be too many people talking about a good thing, right?
Yeah. And there's some strategy there too with working with small businesses, but we've had incredible relationships with small businesses and being affiliates for small businesses. I would say to look for something where they're treating creators really well, where they're giving you at least 10% of the cut and more. If they're willing to give you more, a lot of these small businesses, if you prove yourself, you sell a certain amount, then they'll bump you up to a new affiliate commission. I just feel like it's like this with any business. Lean into the people that treat you well, that you have a good relationship with, because those relationships can be so big and so important. So I agree with you. That can be such a lucrative and wonderful win-win all around.
Yeah.
The customer wins, the small business wins, the blogger or creator who recommended the product wins. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
If it's a good product and then the brand is treating the creator well and the creator's doing a good job of sharing.
Yeah. I love it. So I'm picturing Corinne on an island with her laptop. What are we doing to start this business again?
Starting all over. I think that sometimes I look back and think, it happened the way it was supposed to happen. And so that's all good. But would it have been easier? And would it even be easier now if we had one thing that we did? And this has been a struggle for me to pull it in, because back when I started, people weren't just pounding you with pick your niche, the Alex Hormozi loves to say that riches are in the niches. If I could go back, I would probably look at all of the things that I love and say, what can I talk about every day for the rest of my life? I do love fashion. I'll be honest with you, though, as a woman who has had so many changes in her body over the last 11 years, fashion has been hard at times. Right before, right after having a baby, during a pregnancy, like those are hard times to be a fashion blogger.
Yeah.
Right after is actually the very worst time.
I'm sure.
Because you look at your body and you're like, what just happened to me?
Yeah.
Especially the first couple of times.
I don't want to take swimsuit pictures this season.
There's so much pressure, but it doesn't matter. It's like swimsuit season's here, whether you like it or not,
Yeah.
That's just something that I had no idea. And then with baby stuff, I loved baby stuff. I was so passionate about it in the beginning. My audience has grown out of that. There's a handful of people who care about strollers, but not really. Like most of these women have grown up with me.
Yeah.
So the seasonality of that, like, yeah, you can continue to be like the car seat mom and be like, if that's just you love that, then that's awesome. But just know that you're going to turn and burn that audience and you'll have to continually look for new people. At this point, looking back at all of the things and what's most sustainable, I probably would lean into beauty, honestly, because I feel like it doesn't matter what age I am, I'm always going to care about hair products and skincare and makeup. And those are things that I love so much that I could talk about them for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I would probably pick a niche. Like I would go back and be a little bit more specific about what I'm posting about. But that's after 11 years of knowing now what I know.
Yeah. That's what we want to hear, though. We want to save 11 years of what you did, what you would do differently. So I think that's important.
I would be careful about who hiring and firing is just straight up the absolute worst part of owning a business. I'll be straight with you. Like, especially the firing part. It's so hard. But I think that I did it out of desperation when I needed people. And that's where I think most people come from when they start hiring. I read the E-Myth and was like, all right, let's go. I think that if you can intentionally, like carefully ask some mentors, ask some people for advice. Hey, how would you do this? I didn't start asking those questions and having those conversations until I was a few years into it. Because at first it was just like desperation of I'm drowning. I need someone to rescue me. Like I need an employee who's going to be like my life preserver. So I would go back and tell myself, slow down, have some conversations with people who really know what they're talking about, who have owned a business, who have hired people, get some good advice and then start. I wish I would have done that. One thing I think that Neil and I did really well, but it took some time, was figuring out how to work together. At first we tried and it was a disaster. It lasted like 3 days. And this was because Neil lost his job and we were like, I have a blog, I'll work really hard. And he was looking for a job. And in the meantime, he was like, should I work with you? And I was like, okay, here's all the things that I don't have time for. So it was like he was my assistant and that was a disaster.
Yeah.
And what we ended up doing was doing a doTERRA business where he worked alongside me and we figured out how to work together. But the key component of that was staying in our own lane. He had his lane, I have my lane. And even now he's come into Mint Arrow and is such a huge key player in that. But I don't get into his business at all. Like he does all the finances, he does payroll, he does taxes, he does the contracts. And I don't check up on him and go, hey, have you set up payroll yet for this month? I don't even think about it. And I stay out of his lane and he doesn't ever get into my content creation lane. That's something that I feel like we had to learn by trial and error, but we maybe could have worked together sooner if I just had understood that. But I don't know. I don't know if I could have learned it any other way.
Yeah. Sometimes those things have to be learned the long way around to really get the lesson, fortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Another one that just came to mind was when I read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits at just the perfect time when I was feeling so frustrated that people were copying me. And there were people who were just straight up like waiting for me to post the deal and then taking my whatever I posted that day and posting it themselves. And I used to pay attention to that and get really frustrated by it and feel I was just so scarcity minded. I had this scarcity mindset of if someone else posts about it and then one of their readers buys it from them, then they're not buying it from me and I did the work. And that is going to keep you from succeeding. When I look at even like product owners, and we've done a little bit of product, but when I see people who just throw all of their time and energy and attention into a lawsuit to go after someone who's creating a copycat, I'm like, oh, I feel bad for you because I know how much you're just going to swim in the muck of that. Like, you can't be happy and creative and positive while you're just focusing on what other people are taking from you.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a huge lesson for me that I would sit myself down in the beginning and tell myself, read this part of Stephen Covey's book where he talks about the abundance mindset, that abundance mentality of there's room for everybody. It doesn't matter if people copy you, just put your head down and work and do your best. And eventually people fizzle out who aren't doing it for the right reasons anyway.
Yeah. That's so true. So true. And I feel like throughout this episode, you've given so many steps of really what we need to consider with the SEO research. And really, I know niche selection is so important, but even the passion of driving that niche selection. And I think more so for you, it was like, wow, I really found that the consistent thing I've been passionate about has been beauty. I've loved all the things, but they've all been seasonal. And this is something I could talk about till the cows come home. So I think we have a pretty good framework here for starting a blog, building monetization into a blog, understanding how we can branch out, bring people to that blog. You've given so much value that I feel like you could have listened to this episode as a beginner and have a really good foundation for where to start. So I appreciate you and so many great little side lessons along the way of understanding how we can work, how we can scale, build a team, and all those considerations. Somebody who's been in this over a decade, you're the people we want to hear from because we want to learn the lessons in the shorter way if possible. So thank you so much, Corinne. You're so smart and so amazing.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for all of the kind compliments. I just always feel uplifted when I'm around you.
Oh, ditto. Same goes for me. That's why we wanted you here. So
Thank
it's been
you.
great conversation. Anything else that you want to send to our audience of what to consider when they're starting out on this journey of building a business?
I think just, going back to the very beginning of this interview when I talked about like this wasn't the plan for us, but it was what God intended for us. I think that whether you are a universe person or a God person or your gut intuition, whatever that is, trust that because that's never going to take you in the wrong direction. When we've had our biggest wins is when we've just followed in total faith. This is what feels right. Those are the things that turn out the best.
I love that. Great advice. In a world full of strategies and tips and tricks, I think that is one of the most important things that intercompass. So great final words. Thanks again, Corinne. One of the things I love absolute most about this podcast and the people that we get to bring on is witnessing the growth journey and understanding all of the different things that really have had to go into building a successful business. I loved understanding all of the different phases of growth that Corinne went through and taking this fun little thing that helped her get through postpartum depression into a full-fledged business that feeds her family after over 10 years. That is power. Thank you so much again, Corinne, for being willing to just open the door and share with us everything that you did and continue to do to build up the Mint Arrow brand. If you guys found value in this episode, go hit us up on Instagram, give us a shout out, give Corinne a shout out. Go ahead and follow her over on Instagram. She's doing some really cool things now as well. And if you're in the market for some really great high-end deals, then she is your girl. Thanks for tuning in today, you guys. Class is dismissed.